So welcome to our Inclusive Education podcast. Today we'll be talking about equity versus equality and understanding the concept of fairness in the classroom. So this is a huge topic within elementary students. In my last practicum, I know it became a huge issue of fairness of who could use the spin bike or who got a fidget spinner just based on different adaptations that individual student had. Students have come to understand fairness as simply equal treatment, but really treating everyone exactly the same actually isn't fair. What equal treatment does do is erase our differences and can promote privilege in the classroom.
So to begin our discussion about our concept, I'm going just to define a few terms for us. First off, equity is defined as giving everyone the adaptations and supports they need in order to be successful, where equality is defined as treating everyone the same and providing everyone with the same supports. Equality promotes fairness by starting everyone at the same place with the same support and help, where equity levels the playing field by acknowledging the privilege and differences present between each student. Fairness is not always equal treatment within a classroom. Within the classroom environment, there are a range of diverse needs the students require in order to be successful and to achieve academically. Fairness is giving each student the same opportunities to succeed despite their differences.
So now we're going to talk about how we can actually implement this into our classroom. So how do we talk to our students about fairness versus equality? First, we have to determine students' current understanding of fairness, challenge it. Fair does not equal equality. Having students understand that people have different needs, such as adaptations or flexible seating, or even a tutor for math, can show them that fairness isn't always representing equality. An example of this could be this T-chart from Teach and Transform, who is a third grade teacher in California. From the chart, you can see how she introduces the concepts of fairness and equality to her students. She describes fairness as people get what they need or when should things be equal, and then equality as people getting the same thing, and then talks about the discussion of when is it fair when things are not equal. So under this category, her students brainstorm things such as older siblings having a later bedtime or special help for learning differences or people who need a cane to walk. These are different things that the students came up with. You could also introduce this concept through journal prompts. For instance, she uses the journal prompt, when is it fair for things not to be equal? And I find even students at this young of an age do have a good concept of equality and fairness. So in a lot of situations, I've had practicum teachers think that this might be too big of a topic for younger students, when in reality, they can really understand when it's fair or when they're just promoting inequality.
And drawing from these students' real-life situations and experiences, you can, as a class, brainstorm your own definition of fairness and what fairness looks like to them. And so it's important to have students create their own rather than just having a defined definition of this concept, because having it related to their own lives and experiences makes it more meaningful for them. So for instance, depending on the age level, you could adapt scenarios that are related to their life directly and their school experiences. So you can start off with an easier concept for young students to understand and digest, such as the teacher decided to give everyone in the class with brown hair an A on their test, or everyone who has a birthday in May can go outside for recess.
Once the students have developed a concrete understanding of fairness, you could introduce more complex situations of inequality. This is pretty standard for really any concept in school. You wouldn't give the same scenario to kindergarten students as grade 5s. So another one could be if one student was really good at math and didn't need help, and another student needed a lot of help, would it be fair or unfair for the teacher to spend the same amount of time with both of them? And I think this is something that grade 5 students could really talk about, whether they need a tutor or not, where they need that extra help, whereas some don't, and it all is just recognizing our different needs as individual learners.
A classroom activity that we would like to share with you all in regard to implementing the idea of fairness and equality into your classroom is from Empowering Education, and it is called the Band-Aid explanation lesson. So how this works is that you have all of your students decide on an injury, as far from a paper cut to a broken arm. Just have them have the freedom to choose whatever type of injury they would like to have. And then after they've all chosen their injury, you as the teacher will be acting as the doctor in treating these injuries. So you will walk around the room and treat each of these injuries with a single Band-Aid. And once every student has received their treatment, the class will then come in for a discussion about what their injuries were and the treatment they received. So from the conversation, the class should determine that the same treatment was not always the best treatment for everyone, depending on the injury they had. So depending on how bad the injury was, different treatments would have worked better. So by finishing this activity, you should be connecting it to the idea of fairness. So asking your students, does fairness always mean equal? If everyone got the same treatment, so is it equal? Was it fair? And as a class, you should all realize that no, it is not always fair because we had different needs. So fairness would have been giving everyone different treatments because they all had different injuries.
So those were just some examples of how to incorporate the ideas of equality and the concept of fairness into actual classroom lessons, but we can also incorporate this into our assessment, into adaptations, and just our overall teaching practice. So we need to re-examine your current classroom system and evaluate whether or not it is promoting fairness and providing equal opportunities for each student to succeed regardless of their differences. This can be through differentiated instruction and assessment, for instance, giving more opportunities of visuals for visual learners. People that have stronger writing skills might want to write an essay, whereas musically talented students might want to write a song, giving students the different opportunities for them to succeed. And this is done by identifying the individual needs of your students and creating lessons and assessment to accommodate these needs. A quote we wanted to share with you: if we cannot blame our differences, then we must look to systematic obstacles. Would we assess a fish's success by its ability to climb a tree? No way. In fact, Albert Einstein once claimed that everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So why do we insist on administering the same test in the same paper-pencil format to a classroom of diverse students? So to wrap things up, the importance of students and educators to understand fairness versus equality and equity is super important. Oftentimes, decisions are made to accommodate the majority of people without considering the individual needs, which is really reinforced by our education system and things like standardized testing. We need to advocate for equitable practices that promote fairness and incorporate lessons into our classrooms to better students' understanding.
Fairness is achieved when equity is practiced and incorporated into the classroom practices and decision-making. It is important for teachers to increase their students' tolerance and appreciation of diverse learners and to develop an understanding of privilege and equity in the classroom.
Thanks for listening.